Leveling and setup for the Roastrunner oven fat separator, type 2NS and 3SF. This is the gravity fat separator. This is a gravity fat separator viewed from the rear of the oven. We will go through the parts that make up the gravity separator. Motor actuated 3-way valve, top weir that's on the inside of this pipe, infill solenoid port, the fat chute going to the blue bucket, the fat weir, and down inside the tower here there is another weir at the bottom. The tank leveling adjustment bolts. The first step to leveling the fat separator is to get the 3-way motor actuated valve to turn to the closed position. At the same time, we will activate the infill solenoid to fill the tank with water. At the computer control panel, tap on Settings. Tap on Diagnostics. Come to the separator valve section and tap on Close. Then come across to the separator fill section and tap on the spot beside it. This will put water into the fat separator. Separator fill will only stay on for 60 seconds, so it will be necessary to push this button several times to get the required amount of fluid into the tank. Here we can see water is going into the tank. This is happening because the fill solenoid was activated at the control panel. The rate at which the water flows in should be similar to pouring a cup of coffee. For ovens that have a flow controller back here and don't have a watermark tank, please adjust the valve so that we get this flow rate. We have the fat separator full of water. We still have the fat separator fill solenoid running and still have water coming out of the fill port. If we look over to the fat weir, we can see that we still have water overspilling this edge, running down the chute and into the bucket. This means that this part of the fat separator is too low. This fat weir is lower than the weir inside here. So we have to jack the fat separator up. So this side here needs to come up. Only make these adjustments whilst the water is coming out of the fill port here. Water coming out from the fill port influences the height of the tank here, which ultimately influences the height at the fat weir. We need to raise the fat tank. So to do this, we loosen off the 2 locking bolts here and the other one down in here. Then we loosen off the lock nuts either side of the thread, and we want to jack it up. So we'll loosen the nut off this side here and we'll tighten the nut on this side here. That will extend this length here, allowing the tank to swing up. Underneath this locking bolt here is a slot. Underneath this locking bolt here is a straight round hole. So as we extend this, the tank will move in the slot and twist up. Here we can see that the water is still going in to the tank, and the water level at the fat weir is approximately 2 millimeters below the height of the weir. So now we don't have any water going down into the bucket. This is a perfect and correct setting. If we are setting up a tank that has been in use before, it will have a certain amount of fat still in the tank. So what we do is we adjust the fat separator until we see the last bit of the fat run out and stop, when we never see water run out with it. It's a lot more difficult to adjust this once the tank has had fat into it, because we're not exactly certain as to where the water level is. So if we continue to adjust it till we do not see any drips of water continue out congealed with the fat, that will be the setting. Last thing to do is to tighten the lock nuts up and the two locking bolts after the adjustments have been made. It is common to note that ovens that get moved regularly or have been moved out of the road to have the flooring reconditioned, or these sorts of situations, will sometimes require the fat separator to be leveled again. The complaint from the staff members will be that the blue bucket fills with water and fat, not just fat. Under these circumstances, it will be necessary to tensite and re-level the fat separator.